Welcome to The Cleaning podcast about Apple TV Plus's show Silo. We are on season 2. My name is Catfish, and with me, as always, is someone who also can't make his own coffee. It's Bubba!
How dare you, Catfish? It's so great to be with you, someone like Bernard, who has a different perspective than anybody else.
Yes.
Guys, we are talking about Season 2, Episode 5, Descent. Sims finds himself in a new position. Juliette learns Solo isn't being honest. Bernard and Lukas make an important discovery. On this podcast, we're going to rank the episodes. Silo speculation, better in the silo, not in the silo. Episode breakdown, judicial debates inspired by reader feedback. Catfish questions, musical analysis on reharmonizing. Our book talk, and even though this podcast is on the midway point, see episode 5 of season 2, our reactions to episode 4 were so strong, and your reactions to our reactions were so strong, we have got more feedback than Silo 17 has water. That's how much we've got. It's incredible.
Well, I'm already tired.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah. Ooh, walking up and down these stairs is painful. Catfish, what is your rating out of 10 for the midpoint of Silo Season 2, Episode 5, Descent?
Well, I'm going to give this 7 out of 10, what I like to call double triple Bs.
Wait, double triple Bs?
That's right, because it's either Bernard's book bullying or Bernard's blockade boner.
Oh, no, Catfish. You've got something for Bernard. And so let's hear it. 7 out of 10 feels like a good, in quotes, episode. 7 out of 10. Why 7 out of 10?
As I was thinking about this episode, I thought, I can either complain about them showing us Juliette's dad for 1.5 years before finally finding a use for him, or I can complain about how they sidelined Lukas, then all of a sudden brought him back and made him important. But I can't do both.
Oh boy, that is tough.
Or can I?
You find a way. Like life in Silo 17, you'll find a way.
I will find a way. And that is, it still seems like Juliette's dad, even though he's going to maybe fix up our boy Patrick, that is not as important as the kind of stuff that Lukas is going to discover. So both of these things, I mean, I was glad of like, oh, finally we found a use for the doctor. I did enjoy his double being back talking to Bernard.
Yeah.
That was good. And then we've got a use for him. I was fascinated that Sims doesn't like being a judge. I mean, his wife knows it's a good gig, but she's got some blind spots, Bubba. How does she not realize after how it backfired when she tried to impeach the judge that intercepting these 2 mechanicals and then letting them go? She thinks that A, Bernard is not going to find out about it, and then B, he's not going to be completely livid with her. We already see tonight, he doesn't like it when A, people come up with other plans, or B, think that they own something that is actually Bernard's, like the entire Judicial Corps.
Man. Camille wants her husband, Robert Sims, to be Bernard's shadow. And instead, he became judge. And it's almost like when you order a Coke and they bring you a Pepsi, you tear the place up. You wreck shop, just like Camille did.
Well, Bubba, what is so bad about being a judge?
Well, you can drink a lot. All the alcohol you want. Why, it seems like a great position.
Oh, man. Well, Bubba, forget what I think about it.
I will.
The viewers/listeners have already forgotten about it. So let's let them tell you what yours is so they can forget about yours. What did you give tonight's episode?
Well, Catfish, I put a lot of thought into this seconds before we hit record. So I'm going to give this 7 triple Ps out of 10.
Triple Ps?
Yes. Well, as you know, this week Lukas was assigned some soft duty. So a double S and a D there. Instead, I'm going to give this a triple P, a.k.a. a pliable, and I just erased it. I spent all the seconds before we hit recording. I figured out something, and I just deleted it.
Go use the back thing.
Okay, I did. Okay.
There you go.
I called it pliant possible plot lines, meaning these plot lines get very pliant. Let me say, that there are moments in this episode that remind me why I love Silo. Knox and Shirley deciding to invent bungee jumping in the silo. Hell yeah, that was incredible. That was tense. Solo having his "my name is my name" moment freak out in the episode. I loved it. I loved Juliette's father, Dr. Nichols. I loved him double being to Bernard. I thought it was great. These moments reminded me why I love this show, why we're doing this podcast, why we're so passionate about this. Let me say, listeners who hate us mentioning the book,
don't bring it up, Bubba.
I know. None of those things that I'm talking about I loved are in the book. Yet, I'm only 7 out of 10 because these are moments that I love. And they really are just moments. I'm going to do a couple examples. We'll get more into it into the episode breakdown. But Knox and Shirley, we cut to them. We'd been in a different scene. The show cuts to Knox and Shirley. They're running down the stairs. They come up on these judicial raiders that we know are waiting for them. The raiders are like, "Show us your ID." Knox, do we have to show our ID? Real quickly, it becomes a brawl. Hell yeah, it is tense. Here we go. Suddenly, Camille Sims comes up and puts a kibosh on any fight, any brawl, almost any tenseness. Like, it's okay, guys, there's no tenseness. I'm here. Do you know how long it was from us cutting to Knox and Shirley running down the stairs to the judge showing up? It was under 2 minutes. The show gives me this moment, and it doesn't even last 2 minutes of tenseness that I love. And it's not like I need action. The fight was probably at the most 30 seconds. But the show loves dissipating the tenseness that I just happen to love. So that's one of the reasons I went 7 out of 10. The second thing, and I'll get into a bunch of these in the episode. Episode 4 ends with Sims telling everybody, "These people killed the judge, mob, go get them." This was shortly after Bernard told him, "Hey, Sims, don't let him get too far away." So that's how episode 4 ends. Episode 5 begins with Sims going home and having dinner with his wife. Okay, go get him. You better not let him get far. Sims is like, "I will, because I want to be your shadow. But first I'm going to go home and talk to my wife about how I'm not shadow anymore." There's some real head scratchers like that. I'll try to focus more on the positive. Hey, look at these moments that really jazzed me and got me so excited. We love to say, hey, who cares what we think? We are just two bozos who record a podcast on this show. You're the third part of this. Your opinion is what makes this a wheel. You need 3 points for a triangle, 3 points for a wheel. Catfish is agreeing silently. I love that. And so, hey, tell us what you think. Also know that, guys, as we record this, we are on YouTube. We are 830 subscribers away from 10,000. Please, we've mentioned this before. You hate hearing it. We hate saying it. We hate having to sell this stuff. But you kind of can't get discovered on YouTube and on audio podcast if you don't have subscriptions. So please help us reach some of our goals. If you listen on audio podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. And once again, tell us we're wrong. We're totally cool with this. You can tell us we're wrong on social media. We're on all social media apps at double PHQ. The word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters at double PHQ. Whew.
Dang, that was impressive, Bubba. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is, if you were ready to do it, Bubba, do you want to do any what I like to call double S?
Double S?
That is silo speculation.
Well, Catfish, we are at the midway point. And so one thing you and I have been doing in the spoiler book talk section is speculating on how season 2 might end. We don't want to spoil anybody, but this show, as I mentioned, a lot of this is not from the book. And so I think feel free to speculate further. Solo, and you better call him Solo. You say he's not Solo, he's going to snap at you. He has a real situation of his own. In, a number of months, he's going to be flooded out of his room that, if he forgets the code of 3 times, he's SOL. By the end of the season, is Solo's silo going to be completely flooded in his room underwater? How do you speculate that?
I think Juliette is gonna help him out. I mean, If not, he's going to go ham on her.
Oh my gosh. Enough of that, Catfish.
Mm-hmm.
We've got two worlds. We've got the world where two morons like us can be talking on a podcast. And we got the world of the silo where they don't have to listen to podcasts. They can listen to beautiful music on old records. So as we love to say, based on this episode 5 of season 2, would you rather be living in this world of the silo or out in our real world?
Well, Bubba,
yeah.
My question to you is we're down to the Catfish questions, but I need the answer for this now. Mm-hmm. So Lukas tells Bernard that IT has a power source that exists separately from the power that Mechanical is giving.
I want to freeze you for 1 second. You are doing what the show wants us to do, but it's Solo who tells Juliette, Juliette's like, how do you still have power if everything's underwater? And he's like, IT gets its power elsewhere.
Right.
And
then Lukas says, here's the part that looks like, but does not Lukas say it might be power or no?
No, Lukas didn't say it. If Lukas is supposed to be an intelligent character, he might be figuring that out. But he did not say it in his scene with Bernard.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you cleared that up. Now, listen, though, but that doesn't deter from the fact that IT has a power source that apparently does not need any maintenance.
No.
Because it's been, down there. They're down there. The mechanicals are always fixing stuff.
Right.
We're trying to shut this down. We gotta clean this up. Mm-hmm. But IT's got a power source that's never shut down. Doesn't need any maintenance. Doesn't need any refreshing. And so because of that, the power company cannot price gouge in the silo. So clearly, it is better here than in the silo.
It's better here in the real world because that way,
with the price gouging,
people can charge what they want to charge. They don't have, aren't limited.
That's
okay.
Right.
So
right. Hashtag freedom, hashtag democracy, hashtag free market.
So because you are mentioning power, I guess I'll go ahead and say it's much better than living in our modern world than living in the silo. If in our modern world, if you live in Texas, if it's too hot or too cold, you could lose power. There in the silo, IT will always have it. So there you go. I've lived in Lubbock, Texas. Hell yeah. They need some silos there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree.
We love to joke on this segment, but very few people have responded with answers themselves. So, we always push for subscribers and we need them, but let's have this. If you are listening to this ridiculousness and you have a thought based on this episode, if you'd rather be here in our modern world or there in the silo, let us know.
Excellent. I love it. Okay. Well, Bubba, we've done all the foolishness. Now it's time to do more foolishness, which is what I like to call recapping the episode.
Okay.
For people who've already seen it but want to have it described to them.
Well, you saw it and you didn't understand the power thing at all.
Listen, I have to watch I have to not pay close attention, otherwise I can't. I'm preparing myself for the deeply dumb Catfish question, so I can't watch it and answer too many questions.
No, I've been that way too, because I like to take notes. Literally, sometimes just by looking down and not actually looking at the closed captions, I've gotten a lot of things wrong too. So hey, listeners,
you missed something.
You
said
honest.
Something last week where you were describing something, and I'm like, I must have been making a note when that happened on screen.
What do you want to talk about first?
Wow. I always like to talk about the thing that is a hint to viewers about what I liked least in the episode to what I liked the most.
Yeah.
So I like to get the spinach out of the way first. So let's talk about Silo 17.
Whoa, man, you have been tough a couple of weeks choosing this to talk about it first. What's funny is Catfish, you're just like our listeners. Again, we'll get to this in feedback, but people either really love the Juliette and Solo storyline or they feel like, hey, where is this going? So,
well, I just have to, it's weird. It's sort of like when we talk about, the problems that George R.R. Martin had with the Game of Thrones books, where it's like there's a lot happening in one place that has to happen simultaneously with not much happening in the other place. Yep. So they're really giving us drips and drabs of Silo 17.
when Juliette is not in her, I have one focus, everybody else can go to hell mode, like she was a bit last week. I do like these two characters, and I like their interaction. And I even like the fact that they're butting heads plenty of times. In this episode, Juliette's big kind of goal for the episode, if you will, is I'm trying to get back to my silo to make sure there isn't some sort of crazy rebellion and people go outside in this toxic, poisonous world. She needs a helmet. That's like her big thing. During this, Solo, once again, keeps dripping information, which in some ways, if it's not the thing she's focused on, I want this helmet, it feels like she doesn't really truly take it in and consider what this might mean. So Solo did say to her, he said, hey, IT has its own power source. It comes from the outside. That bubbles up lots of questions like, wait a minute, we're running a generator to make sure the silo can operate and have power, yet somehow you guys have an outside source? Like, there would be natural questions that a mechanic like Juliette, you would think, has a lot of questions about. But because she is almost single-focused always, she skips by it, Catfish. She skips by it. A bit like in season 1, where they're like, yeah, this generator runs on steam. Nobody knows where it comes from. We've got this here about, like, IT has its own power source. Where is that coming from? Wonderful questions. We certainly won't get the answer this week. We mentioned in our silo speculation that Solo's silo, boy, say that 5 times fast, it is flooded. Why did it flood? Well, in the rebellion, judicial raiders blew up a pump and they couldn't fix it before the water overtook the generator. Good work, judicial raiders of Silo 17. Solo has his kind of ask. It doesn't feel like he's as driven towards it as Juliette for her helmet. But what do you think about these kind of competing, we're running out of time narrative? Solo, in a couple months, I'm underwater, versus Juliette's, my silo might be destroyed because people went outside. What do you think of those two competing things? Obviously, if you always want to talk about it first, you're not thrilled. What are your thoughts?
Well, the funny thing is, again, this might be because I wasn't listening closely, but this is the first time I was aware that, like, the water is rising quick enough to be a
this
threat.
Is new information in episode 5. That's exactly right.
Why are we getting this information now? Is it because Solo didn't realize how high it had come? I don't understand.
Maybe because he doesn't know Juliette, right? He doesn't really know her background. And so maybe last week where she's like, hey, I can take apart the harmonium and we can use it to pump air, even though that was his idea. She's the kind of the engineer saying, hey, we can take it apart, put it back together. And she's the one asking, hey, how do you still have power? And she didn't really focus on it too much, but she did have some ideas. Maybe that suddenly flipped a switch in his brain to say, oh, wait a minute, this Juliette's pretty smart. Maybe she can help me with this problem I got coming.
Bubba, if I was all by myself in a silo, if somebody else showed up and I knew that I was going to drown in a couple months, the first thing I would say is, can you help me with my soon-to-be drowning problem?
No, the first thing I would tell that person.
What would you tell him?
My name is Solo!
Okay, well, you got to make that clear.
Okay, all right. But you know what? My name isn't Solo. My name is Cole Myers.
Bubba, I thought he said coal miners.
I did too. Thank you, closed caption.
I said he just used a title as his name. He's making up names. Coal miners. Next week he's going to say, "No, my name is Zookeepers."
No, my name is Judd. Judd what? Last name Initial Raider. Judd Initial Raider. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
You've lost your damn mind.
How about this? Juliette doesn't even, now let me say, I did high school plays just like I'm sure you did high school plays. Juliette doesn't know anything about the play which she's based on, Catfish. Her name is based on, of course, Juliette. On the show, her character name is spelled differently from Juliette in the play. Catfish, did you know a lot of Shakespeare? Did you know that What's in a Name was from one of his infamous plays?
As a youth graduating from college, I worked for the Honolulu Theater for Youth. You do 2 or 3 shows a day, truncated shows. Wow. And I did indeed do a version of Romeo and Juliet. Wow. And that is a famous, it's like, what is the name? A rose would smell just as sweet.
Okay.
Blah, 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 blah. Come on, Bubba, get with it.
Sorry, I was in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. I was Polonius, always saying, "Though this be madness, yet there is a method in it." Like that.
Now, the thing that I took from it, was not the what's in a name, but that they didn't die, which is a huge alteration. You might want to cut some dialogue. You're like, when people can't take 2 hours, but we're just going to end it with everybody made up.
Listen, they made it better. Shakespeare, Shakespeare's play is a real downer. And so Silo 18 was like, hey, everybody, these two crazy kids run to the up top together. It's great. Now,
so,
Catfish, Juliette doesn't really care about this play. Her ailments kind of took me by surprise. And because I wasn't piecing together that the show was trying to imply, one of her wounds might be infected. It might be causing her trouble. Many times, or maybe twice in this episode, I thought she was faking being sick just to kind of get some freedom from Solo. Did you realize that Juliette was that unhealthy?
I did not. In fact, I thought when Solo really went off on her, I did not expect her to react that way.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought maybe there's sort of some buried trauma there. I just couldn't figure it out. And then because I was like, this really affected her. Like, she didn't respond as she would have, and she was physically. And then when she showed off her wound, I was like, oh, now this all makes sense.
It was tough seeing her once I finally realized what was wrong with her. I thought, oh my God, this is brutal.
You know what would have helped her, Bubba?
Let's hear it.
If she'd grown up with somebody who knew medicine and had bothered to learn anything from them.
Like Walker?
Instead of...
Oh, you meant like her father, Dr. Peter Nichols.
I did. Nichols. He gone.
Now, let's just kind of go through the rest of it. In the end, she does get the helmet and she does collapse. But we find out two things that really seem odd. Solo, we know there's some sort of programming, some like deep-seated trauma going on there about if he's Solo, he's not the first Solo. We see a photo of somebody else, and that's not him. That's Solo. So has he taken on somebody's persona? And if so, he is, I called it cray-cray. That's, very crass, but he is cray-cray about it. I love that scene because it's so shocking. It's so kind of like wakes you up from the stupor.
It does. It does.
But
in the end, does it really? It's only going to matter in that whatever explanation about it is going to explain what happened in Silo 17. Even though, to be honest, I don't really care. I care like what's happening in Silo 18. Okay. I don't know if unless there's something that we can learn that's going to inform what's happening in Silo 18 about what happened in Silo 17, I'm not really sure that I'm super interested in it at this point. And maybe that's what other people are reacting to as well. Like they're trying to like, ooh, there's all these pieces to this mystery. And some people are going like, I don't care. I know. No, I'm just saying some people may not like, Right. The story of Silo 18 is all the people that we care about.
One last thing before we jump to Silo 18, and that is because you know Romeo and Juliet so well, and there is the line, what's in a name? Is there any sort of clue in the play that would explain why Solo took on another name, or why he would be so attached to it and has to be known as, hey, I'm IT Shadow, I'm Solo? Any idea?
No, nothing I could think of.
Listeners, if you have some thoughts,
bring it up.
Hey, yell at us like Solo yells at Juliet at PHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, or go down in the comments and let us know. Catfish, let's go next to maybe a scene that I was not so sure about, and that's Billings and Hank and their investigation into the riot that happened in the Down Deep a couple episodes ago.
You know what? I know why you're going to react to this. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's just because you can't believe that this guy makes no sense that this dude is still alive.
You are exactly right. And let's just, we can almost wrap up the whole story by this. how in the world did the judicial raiders leave Patrick Kennedy alive? So I'm trying to work it through in my head. Okay, they told him, hey, start this riot, throw this, Molotov cocktail at the police station, start a riot, and then we're going to give you the drug. That's what they told him. What in the world did Sims tell that guy who fired the gun? Wouldn't he have told him, hey, take this guy out? So let's imagine.
Well, I think he did. It seemed like
he did shoot him.
He did shoot him, but the other guy got in the way. But you would have thought he would make sure that the job was done.
Right. So Cooper gets shot. I'm pretty sure Patrick Kennedy is lying on the floor when Knox and Shirley run to Cooper to see if they can revive him. Anyway, both get brought to the hospital. Maybe because of the craziness that Bernard isn't really focused and Sims is so focused on being a shadow, he doesn't pay attention to that Patrick Kennedy theoretically got up from the down deep hospital, clinic and left with a niece of his. Just seems very, very odd to put it together. It seems very odd that with the judge murdered, that nobody would call the sheriff and say, Sheriff, listen, I know you're doing something, but you got to get up here and help. I understand that there's this weird power imbalance between the judicial raiders and the sheriff's department, but he is the sheriff. It seems odd that it was almost like, hey, we're just keeping you in the loop. Do whatever you want. And I know he's, 100 floors from all that's happening, but still, just moments in this, I didn't feel too good about, I guess is all I can say.
I knew it and I called it, so I'm ready to move on as well. But I did enjoy, however, the part where Sheriff Billings says, yes, sir, Bernard, I will follow the pack to the letter.
Oh, man, that's pretty good, isn't it?
So that was worthwhile to me.
And even though I'm very tough on this particular part because I'm not truly following the logic of it, Hank and Billings, these two need to be together. Hank, you're in the down deep and you kind of mock yourself and everybody in the down deep. Billings, bring him up top, give him a promotion. Let him go up top. These two are good together, good characters, even if their storyline is, to me, a little squishy. Do you want to guess where it's going? I mean, Billings for a season and a half has been realizing slowly, this pack ain't all it's cracked up to be. Is that where we're going, where Billings is finally like, to hell with the pack? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing that frustrates me a little bit here is that at this point Patrick Kennedy has anything to bargain with. So in other words, he's going to be like, you do this and I'll give you more information, right? So it's like, don't delay this. Don't delay this. All Billings has to say is, give me everything or I deliver you to Bernard. Just
that's great. Yeah.
Well, the show is just delay. It's more delay. Let's get to it.
One final thing that I didn't like about this story. I like Billings so much, but here he just comes out and tells another person, oh yeah, by the way, I have the syndrome. Now, maybe he thinks other people notice it, and maybe they do, but to come out and constantly tell people when all last season it was like, we got to keep this a secret. We got to keep this a secret. It's almost like, listen, Patrick Kennedy, you can trust me because I have the syndrome. Like you should tell everybody at this point. Why not wear a badge? Hey, guys, I have the syndrome. But it's cool.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, let's get to, how about Lukas? Lukas, this is another thing. I actually really like this storyline, but there's a bit of a logic that I can't get my head around. Last episode, the judge listens to Lukas. Judge Meadows sends Lukas back down to the mines, which is, you assume, at least 100 floors down, you assume? Are the mines above mechanical? Anyway, Lukas gets sent down 100 flights of stairs. After that, the judge is murdered, and there are all sorts of blockades on the stairs. Yet somehow Lukas has come up another 100 flights of stairs to be brought back into Bernard's office.
Well, they brought him back pretty fast, Bubba. He did not even get a chance to shower or change clothes.
Yeah.
He is like direct, just ashy.
How long would it take you to, and these aren't like normal 100 flight, 12-foot floors, right? This silo, God, this guy's walked a lot of steps after working in the mines.
Yes, after working a full shift in the mines, or at least rolling around on the floor in the mines. Last episode, Bernard was like, "What are you doing, Judge? What are you causing trouble for?" And now all of a sudden, everything has changed because the judge, he had to bump her off, even though the two of us agreed that he was going to have to bump her off anyway.
Right.
He says, all my plans are changed. And also, she had something she wanted to tell him, but wouldn't tell him. So now Bernard's like, I'm getting this information. Lucas,
so
you can't get into any more trouble, he says. Right. You're not in any further legal jeopardy. It's not exactly a blanket pardon here.
I actually don't mind it, but a bit of this episode, I kept thinking back to season 1 and how Bernard, outwardly, he was like this innocent guy who liked to have a little drink, right? Like until he was revealed in the cornfield when he confronted Juliette, outwardly to kind of everybody, even the mayor and Deputy Marnes. He was kind of like, well, you want to do it, but the judge is in charge. That was his outward look. And so now his outward look to so many people is, do it my way or else. You're going to solve this better than anybody else here in IT. And reminder for our listeners, Lukas did work in IT. But he's like, you're going to solve it because unlike them, you got a motivation they don't have. If I go back to the mines, me gone. So
I mean, Bernard in this entire episode, because we're going to talk about him a lot more, Bernard is just crushing it this episode.
Love it.
He is like evil/power incarnate. It is just Team Bernard all the way. I'm Team Bernard. I'm on Team Bernard.
He's
Why not?
The silo safe.
Yeah, sure.
Safe. So Lukas has found a bunch of stuff. He's found 2 maps of a silo, but one is a map of a silo that's not theirs. And of course it might be theirs, but he doesn't realize, hey, there are these things, coming in on IT and Judicial's level that you were right to suspect are probably power lines, right? He also realized that, hey, this past person, Salvador Quinn, wrote a love letter to his wife, but in the love letter, goes into code. Now, Catfish, there are 2 ways the show could play this. This code could reveal shocking secrets of the silo, or it could truly be a red herring and that once they do this code, it's just Salvador Quinn wrote in code something to his wife, like, I'll always love you. And it could be completely innocent. And Bernard...
It better not, Bubba. Question for you. So when,
sure.
And again, maybe I misinterpreted this, but there was power for IT. And then there was another thing that went
to
sideways.
Judicial.
Okay. Now, my interpretation of that, my guess for that.
Sure.
And again, this is not based on the first book at all. My guess on that is underground connection between the silos. That would be my silo speculation.
Right. Well, there was that tunnel down at the very bottom of the silo, which we actually kind of learned about in season 1. And this map shows us more of that tunnel. So, yes, let me say your thoughts. All our listeners, they're having the exact same thought. These silos, we know they're all right next to each other. Are there tunnels? Are they sharing power? What are they doing being right next to each other? And outside of Bernard, does anybody else know it? Does even Bernard know how deep this is? Does Bernard know that he's in silo 18 and there are more than 18? How much does he know? That's certainly some of the questions we're going to have. Do you want to talk about Lukas's perspective on this scene? Is it so cut and dry? That, hey, I don't want to go back to the mine. I'll do whatever this guy wants. I will act dumb and not try to figure out what these lines coming into Judicial and IT are. What do you think is he having any thought other than I got to do this and survive?
He might eventually have another thought besides that. But I mean, Bernard pretty much lays it out for him. All the horrible things that could happen to him in a mine. Anybody who is aware of regular earth mines, they're no less dangerous than the silo mines. So any day out of the mines is a good day.
Down in the mines, they call me Lukas Canary. What does that mean, Bernard? Nothing. Don't worry about it, Lukas. You're fine. You had some strong reactions to Dr. Nichols in this episode. I loved his speech. Let's just set it up real quick. Billings' wife, Kathleen, is there helping people who've kind of been beat up, I guess, in this riot. But it really felt like the riot was just chasing the 4 down the stairs. So maybe there were more people fighting amongst themselves. I didn't notice it. But either way, Kathleen Billings, who at times I haven't actually felt that warm to, The fact she's helping out, that's cool. The judicial raiders come, grab Nichols, bring him into Bernard. Bernard, last season, it felt like outwardly he was more kind of warm. Here, he's not antagonistic at start. He's like, here's some of Juliette's possessions. We can't let them go back into circulation because it could suddenly become, precious, a valuable item to people in the silo for what Juliette did. And he's asking the doctor, help us restore order. Let me ask you this. Is what Dr. Nichols said, which is, pretty much, hell no, I'm not helping you in any way. Is that the right answer? What do you think?
I mean, it's the right answer until he finds himself wearing a hard hat that says Lukas.
There are only so many doctors. You can't send them to the mine.
You can send them to the mine. You can send anybody to the mine. You can say, you know what? You were cleaning that wound. Now I'm going to have you go outside and clean.
No, you can't. How could
you? Can.
That's
you can.
Terrible.
You can't. Look, he doesn't realize he is the only one who has dared to challenge Bernard without getting what I like to call a double B. Bernard bashing. He did not get bashed by Bernard, and he is lucky.
Do you agree then with Dr. Nichols' kind of statement? And I thought this was delivered very well by actor Ian Glenn. We have sometime teased his American accent. I think it was, you almost look past everything when somebody can deliver this so strong. The silo has taken everything, my son, my wife, and now my daughter. And he calls him out. He's like, you've had me doing this code orange fake birth control removal stuff. My profession is a sham. The silo took, my integrity from me too. Damn. Wonderful, great delivery. I'm not sure where this is headed, but I loved that monologue.
It was a great monologue. It's just really surprising that Bernard's reaction wasn't, I'm sorry, you said you wanted to clean?
How about this? He doesn't even have to tell him you have to clean. We'll say, well, how about say this? Testing. Is this silo microphone on? Silo residents, we just discovered that Dr. Nichols didn't remove the birth control devices from certain patients he's had over the last 20 years. If you're upset about this, you'll find him at this address. Bernard loves mob rule.
Perfect. That is perfect. But again, and I said this a few episodes ago, they, considering the brouhaha that's going on, they should be allowing all the people that want to procreate right now because they need to do.
Oh my gosh!
They should do. They need to do some replacement after the thinning out of the herd here.
Well, let's go through them. Juliette, she gone. That's one child that we can have. R.I.P. Cooper, he's gone. As far as everybody knows, Patrick Kennedy, there's a third child we could have. Who else? If I missed somebody else who's passed away in these first 5 episodes, I mean.
If you know that you're
the judge. The judge is gone. Have another baby.
If you know you're preparing for war, there's going to be casualties. So get to reproducing them now. Okay.
Let's save the chase for the end. The Sims family political play.
Oof.
I'll say this for them. They go 100% when they go 100%. Meaning Camille is pretty much like, hey, you're gonna make my husband judge. Well, I'm gonna destroy your manhunt for these people. Like, this is some hardcore stuff. Again, it didn't seem logical that Robert would head home after the last episode, but he does. And they pretty much are just discussing amongst themselves. We screwed this up. We screwed it up. They knew we were behind the impeachment. When look who comes over, it's coffee maker Bernard, Catfish.
Oh, man. And their son's like, there's a creepy man out there. Well, he doesn't say creepy, but Bernard was acting so creepy.
He let himself in, Catfish. He let himself into their place.
Yeah, he let himself in. What is Sims going to be most in trouble for by the end of the episode? A, starting the campaign to impeach the judge. B, his wife Camille
letting people go,
saving the mechanicals. Or C, Sims' son not recognizing who the mayor is. What's Bernard going to be the most upset about?
He's like, you didn't bring your kid to hear my speech when Juliette did her cleaning? Like, what do I have to do? I'm your boss, Sims. You never told your son about me?
Well, apparently they were too busy studying the pact every night.
Oh, yeah. Well, how about this? We find out in their past, Camille, when she worked in Judicial, she was Rob, her husband's employee. Ooh, talk about every episode. It's something to call HR about.
That's what they really need to procreate for. We need to fully staff up an HR department here ASAP.
Right. And we need them to have power, independent of the generator downstairs. How about this?
Yeah.
The pact was obviously written by stupid men. Mothers are vessels to bring children into the world, just as the silo is a vessel for the people. Youch.
I mean, that is some full-on biblical shit there, Bubba. But I mean, she's saying that in order to deflect.
Oh yeah.
Because what Bernard is saying is, you guys, he's basically saying, I know Sims and Sims not smart enough to come up with this plan. So I assume this was your doing, Camille. And then she's like, no, all I am is a vessel.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk about Bernard in this scene. Tim Robbins, did you find him intimidating, Catfish?
So good. He was so good in this. And this was the start of the episode, and he just brought it the entire episode long. I mean, he's not overdoing it. He's not twirling his mustache, but he is just fabulous in this episode.
He is great. That is the creepiest judge swearing in ceremony since Judge Judy. Listeners, you have missed so many edits right now. We went through.
Everybody gets a ceremonial doily.
Right. But okay, let's get back to seriousness, because Tim Robbins, he's bringing it. But then Sims, we've kind of talked about this ever so briefly. Why is Sims so PO'd about, that is a promotion. He says later in the episode to the judge's secretary, Sharon, when she's trying to say, you'll do this as judge, you'll do this as judge. He's like, I've been working for the judge for years. Well, guess what, Sims? You don't work for the judge anymore. This is a promotion. But he and his wife, they don't like it. They hate it. Is it because it's just ceremonial? I mean, the judge still has powers, right? Like, there are going to be court cases and stuff. But he doesn't care about that. Why are they so frustrated, Catfish, that they didn't get their ultimate goal?
I don't know. Now, it seemed to me, based on what was established, and this has got nothing to do with the books, with last year on the show, that there was this was a triumvirate of leaders, right? We had the mayor, or maybe Quad, that will make an even better wheel. Right?
Okay.
We've got the mayor, we've got the judge, we've got the IT, and we've got sheriff's department, right? They all sort of, or maybe even without the sheriff, those three are sort of like even controllers of what's happening. So I don't understand why he doesn't want the judgeship, because he could use his connection with the judicial raiders. Presumably he's got an in there. His wife clearly still has some power there. He could really kind of do a lot of soft power moves and really make the most of this. And I don't understand between him and his wife, I definitely think she's the brains of the organization, except she keeps doing things that make him look bad in front of Bernard.
But do you think this last move is not, they don't care what Bernard thinks at a certain point? Like, isn't this last move like, Bernard, do you think you got a lot of power? Let us show you what power is. We can derail your railroading of Knox and Shirley. We can send it off track. That's the power we've got.
Understood, but the idea of like the soft power is that by the time you make a move, your position is consolidated enough so that your opponent doesn't have a way to react to you. And their power is definitely not consolidated. And so they're making themselves more vulnerable. I mean, this is what people keep doing things that it again, you don't, that's just the way that it's written. You don't, the show, you don't have to say like, well, people are doing smart things, but like Sims and Camille are doing really dumb things. Bernard's doing dumb things, which we'll talk about in a second. In some ways, it's more fun to watch smart people make smart moves, but I hope that these moves aren't being presented as smart, because they're not.
Well, they're defiant. You're right. Based on what the show has told us, doing this kind of open defiance in front of Bernard does not appear smart in any way. But do they have leverage we don't know about? Is Bernard's position so powerful that, here, let's jump to a scene that we're going to talk about, or we would normally talk about in the Race to the Down Deep. But Catfish, you talked about it. Bernard, this guy Odmundson, who becomes the new Sims in the Judicial Raiders, he's like, don't worry, Bernard, my men won't mess up, or, my team won't mess up. And Bernard's delicious, wonderful snapback of, there is no manner in which the Judicial Raiders are yours. Oh, chef's kiss in shutting this guy up. That said, Bernard is just one man. This guy gets a cold, or this guy accidentally takes the wrong step down the stairs. Who's to say Sims wouldn't be back on top?
Well, and in addition to that, Bernard alienating the Judicial Raiders.
Yep.
Presumably, Sims has had more interaction with them.
Right.
Camille still has obviously sway over people. So I think that way they can do it. I just think it's too soon.
Okay.
And if their plan, and the thing is, neither of them expressed like, all right, ingratiating ourselves didn't help. Now let's go to open defiance, right? So that wasn't laid out. Mm-hmm. So we still don't know why they chose to do it, what plan they have. So hopefully that will become clear, but obviously she didn't tell him because he's really disdainful about the judgeship.
Yeah.
She didn't tell him like, no, this is a good move. Also,
they didn't even talk about how we could use this move to get more leverage or power. It was just immediately, this isn't what we wanted. We're being sidetracked. We're going to be defiant until we get back on the track we want.
Also, is it possible that let's just posit this for fun. Okay. So the judge heard firsthand from the report, but Billings said in the report is going to be, did he say that it was going to be one person just said they didn't see it? With Juliette saying she wanted to go out?
Right. There's just one raider who was who was there, we know was there, but according to Billings' report, just said, oh, I didn't hear it. Right.
Right. So the thing is, what I was wondering briefly is that report that Sims, or that folder that Sims so casually just strewn aside, is the folder that has the report in it, where he could be like, oh, uh-oh.
Right. No, that'd be great. That'd be great. Did you want to say anything else about Tim Robbins putting Odmundson down when Odmundson said, my Judicial Raiders? Oh, delicious.
He's A++. Listen, this is the episode I became #Team Bernard. I'm what I like to call a double B now.
Wait, another double B?
Yeah, I'm a Bernard bro.
Catfish, that's the best way to become his shadow. I tip my cap to you. Let's get to the storyline, which I think had some real highs, also a couple of odd moments in it as well. Okay. But our hero team in Silo 18, we've got Knox, Shirley, Walker, and Carla. We left them. They were on the run for their lives. We joined them, and they found a hidden place to hide. And then they go to Carla, who is the one who lives the highest in the silo of the four of them. She, also being in supply, probably knows people. She knows this person in the porter station there named Calvin. Calvin, what a scumbag. Let's just get to it. Is there anything positive about this Calvin guy at all? He wants something from Juliette Nichols, but he probably is just using that to sell it. Calvin, not a fan, Catfish.
Okay. Let me just push back a little bit.
Okay.
This guy is not only a great negotiator,
Okay.
he loves to negotiate. Even though he knows he's going to sell him out, he is still pushing for more stuff. I want this thing from Juliette. I want all your booze. Give me 12 cartons of the good tape.
Man.
I want a 8-track tape of John Denver's greatest hits. He wants it all, Bubba, even though he's not going to get it.
No. My own little issue with some of these scenes in the chase is that, okay, these people are on the run for their lives. This should be tense. I hate to compare it to like Breaking Bad or Hitchcock, these expert suspense people in their fields. But like they're on the run for their lives. They go into Calvin's office and it feels like almost like it's staged and kind of acted in a way like, oh, hey, Calvin, we need a way down. I didn't feel the tenseness when they're trying to make this deal with Calvin. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's like another porter in the background of this scene. They're not worried about him seeing or hearing something. Instead, they're like, come on, I got this before time booze. Like, I want more tension. That's just me in this scene.
Well, also, and again, maybe this should have hit me harder, but it didn't feel like he was like, oh, you guys are super hot right now. So
well, he was gonna smuggle him in like a grain thing, right? I mean,
right. But in other words, like I didn't feel like when you're talking about the pressure, I didn't feel like he was putting pressure on them, like saying this could cost me, and so it's really going to cost you, right?
Right. Yeah. There wasn't much of that. Calvin, for as much as I dislike him, people have always, in all our comments, all over the internet, always say, why isn't there a damn elevator in this silo? Calvin, he breaks the pact for his secret pulley system, which will come back at the end of the episode. Carla and Walker are like, hey, we're slow. The people know we didn't kill the judge. Why are we running? Couldn't we just not be running? Carla and Walker split up. Walker gives her a goodbye kiss. Catfish, let's step out the silo for a second. Do you have any ex relationship where you could walk up to them and, after, kind of not being in a relationship with them for a couple of years, walk up to them and kiss them?
I mean, no, but this is a different situation. I mean, they spent some time going up, coming down. Their lives are under pressure. It's not like they just bumped into each other at the mall and then like someone starts matching on the other one. You're
out holiday shopping and you're like, man, remember how we used to date?
Bring it in.
Did you get touched? Did you feel emotion that Carla and Walker had to split up and they said goodbye with a kiss? As Carla just sat there and waited to be arrested. Any
well, yeah, also because it's like, it was, and it's like, she said something smart that I didn't realize. I mean, obviously there's no like videos or pictures, you put out an APB on somebody, you have to describe them. Walker's been hiding her entire life. And so, she doesn't have the Q rating that Carla has. So she should be able to just sneak back.
Knox and Shirley, they had this moment. Again, it was a moment I really loved where there's a friggin' brawl on the stairwell. Do you not like, WWE in the middle of the stairwell? I love it. Of course, Camille Sims has to come down and, stop being interesting. Let's go here. What did you think about Knox? He's coming up and he has listened to our podcast, Catfish. He listened to season 1 of our podcast where he said, do you think every department thinks they're the one that keep the silo running? Catfish, this is us. Knox is a listener. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Knox. Thank you for hearing us.
Knox and Shirley, they've had this issue with Camille. Shirley's like, hey, let's not go down. Let's go up and use that pulley system. And then I loved it. I thought it was crazy, but I love this stunt. If anybody has watched any of the, I think it's Adam Savage videos on YouTube, they talk about this, they had to find a place where they could build this giant staircase for everything. And so it's not like in a studio, which has the normal rigging you would have for stunts. This is, this used to be a mall. And so there's nothing in the ceiling really for stunts. And so you had Juliette swinging in episode 1, and now you have them dropping in this. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was crazy. I also thought, don't you possibly die if you do this not on a bungee cord? Either way, I thought it was a great stunt. It was tense. This is what I love. This is why I love the show. I guess the down deepers are there to help pull him up before Amundsen throws the winch at him. Oh, so good.
So good.
Any thoughts on our heroes escaping? And then the blockade at the blockade on the stairwell. Hoo boy, that did not go too well.
So this is what I thought was the big double B was the Bernard's blockade blunder, which is why I only said 2 B's. Bernard's blockade blunder. Sure. I mean, if he is trying to, it really feels like at this point, he's like, people got to die and I got to rile these people up. But he's riling them up against Judicial. This seems completely counterproductive.
Well, the one thing I'll give to Bernard, and listeners, you can write in the comments if you think this is brilliant or not. The silo suddenly has a completely different focus than, a couple of days ago, somebody went out on a cleaning and walked out of sight. That should be the talk of the silo. I'm not sure Bernard's let's have a civil war in the silo is smart political theater, but it has distracted everybody. We haven't focused on any JL graffiti in the silo recently. We haven't heard too many people talking about Juliette other than something that was in the past, like, hey, let's have her possessions. So I almost think you do have to tip your cap to Bernard's plans here.
All right. Well, I completely disagree.
Okay. Well, 7 out of 10. Why don't we focus, because we're always so snarky, why don't we focus on our favorite moment in the episode? And for me, it was this bungee jump by Knox and Shirley. I thought it was great. What was your favorite moment in the episode?
Holy cow. I can't pick a favorite moment. It's just every Bernard blast that happened in this.
Man, you got these episode. Double B's coming out of your.
I mean, Bernard. I'm just a Bernard bro right now. Call me the Bernard bro.
Here we go. Listeners, do you have a favorite moment at episode 5? We were only 7 out of 10, but there were a lot of highs. Once again, go down to the comments, let us know, and participate in our next segment as well. Catfish, you ready for a judicial debate?
I'm ready.
We got this feedback on YouTube from someone with the handle Dispatch. They wrote, "It occurs to me that the silo is losing an incredible amount of smart people. Judge Meadows, silo lost her. Sheriff Holston in season 1, his wife Allison in season 1, Juliette, Hannah, who's Juliette's mom. We lost Mayor Johns. Like, we are losing a lot of smart people in the silo." Dispatch writes, "These people would be so useful. It's a shame." So our judicial debate this week, Catfish, is of all the characters that are no longer in Silo 18, most of them through death, Juliette through leaving, what's been the worst person for the silo to lose? Losing Juliette because, hey, she gets at the truth. She's good at mechanics and engineering. She's smart. Is it worse that they lost the judge, who was just kind of coming out of her alcoholic stage and kind of maybe a bright person who could help people? Is it the worst that we lost Sheriff Holston, who was, for the brief time we knew him in season 1, a source of, justice? Which citizen that the silo lost hurt the most to the people and to the silo?
All these people that we lost were people who were going to stir up trouble.
How about Cooper? Say what you want to about Cooper. We lost him here in season 2.
Yeah.
But with Juliette out the door, and how about this, Knox soon to be arrested, Cooper was the shadow to Juliette, the person who theoretically knew the most about the generator. He's shot. He's dead. Again, Juliette's gone. Knox is running for his life, soon to be arrested.
Well, Bubba,
this generator is doomed. This silo is doomed. So I'm saying Cooper as the most.
This is what I said last week, though, Bubba. Every time there is a war or trouble, they wipe out all the people in mechanical and the institutional knowledge, which seems insane to me. So that's the same that always happens. Now, Bubba, I want to pitch this. Okay. Who would be the worst person to lose in the future for the silo sink? And I say it's Hank, because if Hank doesn't survive, nobody survives.
No, I'll go the other way. I'll say the antagonist on this show is your favorite character, Bernard. As terrible as Bernard is, Bernard really, from what we can tell on the show, Bernard is really the only person who truly understands the silo, understands everything, and even he may have some holes in his knowledge of the whole world. But I think actually to lose Bernard would be the worst one to lose for the silo, because he does know everything. You want smart people. You don't want smart evil people, but you do want smart people to know how the world works. And Bernard, God bless him, his evilness in this season is trying, theoretically, it's hard to picture how he's doing it, but his goal is to not have the silo have a rebellion and fall. So I say Bernard is the one you don't want to lose.
All right. Well, I know I definitely don't want to lose him because he is delicious.
No, my goodness. Okay, listeners, it's hard to believe that we might have had some seriousness there for a bit, but we want to know from you, who was the most tragic person for the silo to lose, for the Silo Society, and who is the person they can't afford to lose moving forward? So good.
All right, Bub, it's time for the double D's, double Q's.
You mean the dumb, deeply questions from Catfish?
Yeah, the dumb, deeply questions from Catfish.
Oh,
but
great.
we already talked about this, but how does this power that IT is getting keep going if no one is maintaining it?
Well, can you, dare I say it, answer that question? How would it? Let's think this through. So we live in a world where there's solar power. It feels like outside they can still see the sun.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of solar power system that is able to keep going and generating power, and so they don't have to worry about it? And so they had that rather than have IT fall victim to the whims of mechanical down deep? That's one option.
Okay, so that is one option. But Bubba, as someone who has solar, I can tell you, if you don't wash your panels regularly, you get much less juice.
Who's to say another silo cleaning? Maybe that's another silo that your cleaning is to go clean the solar power panels. I want you to tell that to Mrs. Catfish. I want you to tell Mrs. Catfish.
Even
anything up this week, go to the cleaning of the solar panels.
Anything needs to be repaired, that is done. Eventually, something needs to be fixed on it. Okay. And my other deeply dumb question also has to do with the power. Sure. How could IT not know? There been like power fluctuations, stuff like that, and IT does not know. And how do people in mechanical not know? I guess I can understand more why people in mechanical don't know that IT is drawing power. They just put power out and they don't realize where it's going. They don't have a monitoring system for who's taking it.
Well,
but also, how could IT not know?
All right. Well, how about this? You mean the people who work in IT? Obviously, I think Bernard knows. I mean, if Solo knows in his silo, I'm pretty sure Bernard would, or I assume Bernard would know in his silo. I would say that you've worked in actual server rooms. I can go into the server room where I work too. And one thing you notice in, today's world, spoiler alert 2024, is almost every rack that is in the place where I work and the places I've worked in the past in server rooms, every rack has a battery backup. And so if you're in IT and you're like, hey, we're going to turn power down for a bit, and then you hear reports, hey, there was no really outage in IT, and you work in IT, maybe your simple thought is, well, we know all those servers have battery backups, and so that's why there wasn't a disruption.
So do you think, because it seemed to me, and he could have been hiding that knowledge, but it seems to me that when Lukas talked about it, again, I'm probably just conflating these two things. Bernard didn't seem like he knew when Lukas was talking to him.
Well, I think Bernard has, as wonderful as we say Tim Robbins is in this episode, and the character Bernard is in this episode, I think Bernard is walking a real thin line. He's like, tell me what you found, Lukas. And if Lukas finds things that he's not supposed to, as Bernard, you don't want Lukas to realize that you knew it, right? Like if Lukas in the episode is like, well, there are these strange lines that go to IT and judicial. Bernard doesn't want him thinking about it. So it's not like, ooh, what are those lines? But at the same time, he doesn't want to show that he knows. So there's this weird line that I would assume Bernard would have to, play in front of this prisoner of his.
All right, that makes sense to me. Yes.
Write to us and let us know. Catfish, it's time for the quadruple M.
Go quadruple M.
Matt Murdick's musical analysis this week. I mentioned earlier, Matt is going to be looking at the score like he does every week, and he begins by talking about the reharmonizing of the show's themes.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about how reharmonizing something can really change the way that it feels. In this week's episode, Dr. Nichols really tells the mayor how it is. And I found that that particular piece of music, while very simple, employed something that is, again, textbook score, but really effective. There's a simple line that really is just outlined with chords along a minor scale that kind of gives us a sadness. It just ascends. And that simple line sounds like this. Now that is sad enough on its own, and you do feel for the doctor, of course. But it's when he starts to really dig in and talk about it that Atlee does something else. He adds a new bass note underneath that changes the harmonic context and therefore changes the emotional context. What it does is it adds depth of emotion, and you understand how long Dr. Nichols has been in pain simply by changing everything that really starts ascending from the minor sixth up through the root of the minor. Now it becomes the minor 4 chord. Minor 4 chords are always sadder than everything else. You can interchange flat 6 chords with major chords, and it adds an interesting effect, but it doesn't feel nearly as woefully sad as if you have a minor 4 chord, and that's exactly what happens. The second time the line plays through, and it's a simple motive, ladies and gentlemen, but the second time that that line plays through, that extra note on the bottom changes the chord and makes us feel more. It sounds like this. So what the bass note is really can make a difference. And that's musical analysis for this week. Back to Bubba and Catfish.
Well, thank you, Matt. Brilliant as always. Hey.
Bubba,
Yeah.
now it's time to read feedback. And it's not as though we don't have a raft of episode 4 feedback. Third Eye Rate 508 says subscribe or subscribe.
There was a typo on the YouTube video. You should probably do both, but please subscribe. We wish our corporate overlords didn't force us to say subscribe and say you're only going to be shared if people subscribe to your video. Please do it for us. We had this feedback from Third Rock said, great podcast, new subscriber. Thank you so much.
Yes, you don't have to subscribe or subscribe. Lexi Convey says, correction, Oculus is not an Apple product placement. Oculus is a Meta Facebook product.
Ooh,
did I misidentify it as Apple product placement? It was still product placement. That's what I meant.
Incredible.
Becky in Blue Sky says, I'm laughing a little bit too hard at Meadows' mushroom murder this early on a Saturday.
Oh, well, thank you, Becky. That was Catfish. Catfish couldn't remember what our good friend Link Hogthrob's double M was, and so he was trying to put it together, and Meadows' mushroom murder, that described it pretty well. Well, now let's get to it. Once again, we've spent all episode talking about episode 5. You guys had strong reactions to our episode 4. Hobo Deluxe wrote and just said, hey, what is wrong with you guys? Episode 4 was a great episode. What a touching scene with Judge Meadows' death. She probably knew Bernard would never let her go out and clean, and she passed away. So Hobo Deluxe loved the episode, thought we were nuts. All
right, and Cam Shea 23 on Threads, our friend Harley Camille says, I found the judge scene weird. Why wasn't she angry? I did like the scene when she could see Costa Rica. Also, don't take the old lady upstairs. I'm still intrigued with the whole series and what direction it's going. 8 out of 10 brutal Bernards. Hate that guy.
Oh, Camille is not on Bernard's team.
Come on, Harley. Join me as a Bernie bro. Bernard bro, sorry.
Now, Gilbert Riviera wrote, and I thought I was the only one who hated episode 4. Great podcast. Whew. Well, Gilbert, we didn't connect with episode 4. As you can see, some people loved it.
Yeah, people like Tevin Joel Joseph, who said, book this, book that. Come on, guys. Just because you read the book doesn't mean that it's somehow the golden standard. This episode was very good and clearly will set up a whole lot in future episodes, but it got very tiresome hearing in the book every 10 seconds on your podcast.
We are sorry. No Interleaving disagreed with Tevin. They wrote, I rate season 2, episode 4, 1 out of 10.
Whoa.
It was very weak. The killing of the judge felt completely unjustified. I didn't enjoy the episode at all. Ooh.
Now, someone who did was Timmy Boy Media, who said, I think that pre-reading book is spoiling the medium of television for you both.
Ooh.
This is one of the best episodes of season 2, in my opinion. I want to read the books, but I'm waiting because I understand fully that very different types of information can be given in both formats.
And here we go the other way. Crunchy Tire wrote, I didn't think episode 4 was great. It was mostly moving plot lines slowly forward. I think the Meadows stuff was a mistake. Judge Meadows was a great character and had so many possibilities because she was a high-ranking official, but also wanted to go outside. To Crunchy Tire, it was the least exciting way for the judge's character to end.
Ignacio says the Oculus judge scene felt totally silly. In contrast, the previous scene with Projector in Meadows' house was very well done. The highlights of the episode are the solo scenes, the tension and lockdown scene, and when Jules asks him about his age.
Now, we always say, hey, everybody's opinion is valid, and Web Squizza disagreed. They wrote, I disagree. My opinion is not valid. Hey, Web, come on.
Therefore, it is valid? No? Okay, all right. Nebule 1000 says, absolute highlight of episode 4 is when Meadows asked Bernard, how did they lose this world? After just sending Lukas to a certain death for being too dangerous a free thinker.
Now, once again, people had very strong reactions. Listen to this one from the Nathan Geck. They wrote, season 1 made me want to read the book. Season 2 so far makes me want to quit watching the show. Wow.
Holy cow. Now, Ty disagrees. You guys are tough critics, and I love you because you guys keep me grounded.
Aww.
I like the episode, even though the contrast with the pace of Silo 18 and 17 can be jarring. I'm not that interested in the Juliette storyline like I am what's going on in Silo 18. It's almost like time is moving differently in the two storylines. I agree it was weird AF for Meadows to be poisoned and not be upset. That was weird AF to me.
Catfish, you're going to love this next feedback from Get Mic'd. He's a returning double L.
Yes.
Loyal listener.
Yes, I know.
They write, they just caught up on the first 4 episodes of season 2, and he's going to give them a collective score of 6 triple Ps.
Triple Ps?
Plot paralysis. Wow.
Holy cow.
He says, since the beginning of season 1, the show is a slow crawl, and at times it's utterly unbearable. He says, what I'm loving most about season 2 so far is the dead Silo 17. We love, do you see people have different reactions? This is so wonderful. Get Mike continues, I was really beginning to enjoy the Meadows stuff. I found her story the most interesting other than Solo's, but now they've killed off another great character. I can't really get on Bernard. I can't really get on board with Bernard's mustache twirling, and I can't stand Sims. Ooh. Sims's speech after Judge Meadows was murdered was cringe. Just get rid of Sims, the meat puppet. His wife is desperate to pull the strings by the look of it. Finally, Get Mike wrote, I've been with you guys on a lot of past shows. Only Murders in the Building, Magpie Murders, Death and Other Details, Murder at the End of the World, and I've loved every single one of these shows and always rush over here to hear your thoughts. With this show and The Wheel of Time, I find myself enjoying the podcast more than the show. Oh, thank you so much, Get Mike.
I love that Wayne Rogers says, best episode so far, worst episode so far. Judge Meadows gone? She gone. I'd bet the farm on her being the main character till the backstory to the Silo Genesis.
Sutton Daniels gave episode 4 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Sutton enjoyed the expansion and development of the mechanical rebellions, and they enjoyed Solo and Juliette at times, and Hanks and Billings, and they loved watching Billings slowly turn to the good guy side. But most of the episode was stuff the audience already knew. Hats off to Bubba. Hey, that's me, because I'm in the minority with him on how much I don't like frustrated Juliette. Rebecca Ferguson does an amazing job, but this Juliette isn't likable. Poor Solo.
I would agree. Irene Haralabatos. I said that badly. I read the book after watching the first season, so it's been a while, but I found the Meadows-Bernard scenes affecting and heartbreaking. Patrick on Patman. Spanego at Patman on Blue Sky says, Irene and I are in complete agreement as to the Meadows-Bernard scenes. Boo, Bernard.
Catfish. Patman and you are on complete opposite teams.
What's wrong with you, Patman?
I know. Zombie Italian wrote, I didn't care so much for episode 4 and was actually disappointed, though, that Catfish reread book 1.
Oh, man, I apologize.
They continue with some silo speculation. They say Carla is going to die on the way down. Walker has too much to do yet. They said they don't believe there's any way Juliette will make it back to Silo 18 this season, but they believe it may end with her journeying up and that be a cliffhanger. Zombie Italian wrote, I still think there will be a Knox-Sims fight where Sims loses. You guys by far do the best recaps for Silo. Thank you so much. They ended with, do you guys do anything for Severance? A good show. The second season is coming out when Silo ends.
Oh, Bubba, I just did in 1 week a complete rewatch of the first season of Severance, and I am so excited for
it is exciting.
Season 2. Holy cow. But we sadly do not do a podcast on Severance.
Let me say, Zombie Italian, I want to put you in the writer's room. I think the idea of a Sims Knox no holds barred brawl, I would love it. I think that'd be great on the show.
So good. DV says, I liked how things went in 17. Not so sure about 18.
Here we go.
I don't know. Everything seems so complicated in there. I hope one day whoever wrote Bernard's order comes up with a really good reason.
Champion wrote, why wouldn't Judge Meadows tell the secret to Bernard? She knew she was dying. They wrote, I enjoy your humor, both of you. Thank you so much, Champion.
All right. Al Fly. We've had a lot of back and forth with Al Fly. Says, I'm not done listening yet.
Aww.
But I had to pause and comment because this bit made me giggle. Catfish saying, and then we go backwards. Why do we have to go forward and backtrack again? Echoing my sentiments a couple weeks ago about the show's pacing of building up and then pulling back. See, Catfish, we're not so different.
Hey.
I never said we were different. On another similar note to Catfish, I picked up the book again this week. I put the book back down again and didn't finish it because I found myself getting annoyed at the show's pacing compared to the book and some of the changes. The plan going forward, take some silo memory pills and focus on the show.
Yulia, who's going to give us some great feedback in the book section, Yulia wrote, I really enjoyed episode 4. I liked the book, but like it more in the show. Rebecca Ferguson is the highlight of the whole show for me. Her monologue about what Juliette felt when she went out for her cleaning broke my heart. Then Julia has a question for us. Do you guys have any theories about what could be in that infamous Salvador Quinn love letter? Julia has 2 ideas. She says, number 1, it might be something about the origin of the pact. Number 2, he might have written about how much longer they'll need to stay in the silo. So what do you think, Catfish? Do you have a guess? We've already kind of talked about it a bit, but do you have a prediction of what is in this infamous letter that our boy Bernard wants to see so bad?
Ooh, no, but it has got. I think it would have to be. I like number 2. That it would be how much longer they'll need to stay in the silo. Whoa. But Bubba, you've got to mention that this listener is Yulia Johns. Is she related to our
the mayor?
Mayor Johns.
Don't blame me. I voted for Mayor Johns. A couple more. Dennis wrote, Sims's wife strikes me as someone who's stoking Sims's ambition. Well, certainly in this episode, she wants it. He said she is Silo 18's Lady Macbeth. Ho, 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 ho. And No Pico Jake wrote, I'm still confused on Solo having all these random facts. How many books does he have in his vault where Bernard just seems to have the book, The Order? I need Billings and Sheriff Hanks. I need more of them, but it's like they're chasing the truth for what? Well, good question. Free Lukas, because that's too damn harsh. Well, he did get freed, and he said, oh, they brought up only one red ball, shaking my head. Thank you, No Pico Jake. So much feedback. Incredible, Catfish.
Love it, Bubba. Holy cow.
We're going to go to a real quick book talk section this week, but listeners, know that you want to leave. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, you can leave now, and know that you'll hear us on the next podcast about Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Barricades. Bernard enacts a plan to root out Knox, Shirley, and Walker. Billings takes a stand, and Solo saves Juliette's life and wants something in return. For everybody here at Double PHQ, my name's Bubba. You can find me on all social media at FittenTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FittenTrim on social media.
And you can hit me up on Blue Sky and Insta at G to the Man, GEETOTHEMAN. And we'll talk to you on next week's episode of The Cleaning.